Hello everyone, my name is Jimmy and welcome back to the channel. In today's episode of Rippin' the Fence, we're going to be talking about everything we saw from Darlington Raceway. But before we hop into the video, I just want to quickly remind you guys to hit that like button and subscribe button. We would greatly appreciate it if you guys did that. But let's go ahead and hop into the video. Matthew, my friend and co-host, is joining me, and man oh man, Darlington Raceway, final race of the regular season, did not disappoint. A lot of people, when the schedule came out for this year, was like, oh yeah, Darlington's the final race of the regular season. They had to replace it, or they had to fill it in for Daytona because of the Olympic break. It's not going to be that good. Well, that just proved everybody wrong what happened to Darlington on Sunday night. But anyways, like I said, Matthew, my friend and co-host, joining me as always. Matthew, how are you doing before we go ahead and hop into everything that we saw?
Well, definitely was another amazing weekend at Darlington. Another amazing Southern 500, sold out crowd. This time is the cutoff race, and this race did not disappoint when it came to storylines between the regular season, the playoff cut line, cars that were trying to win their way in. Um, Tyler Reddick pretty much being sick the whole race. I mean, Michael Jordan being anxious during the whole race. What a lot of storylines we have, and let's get right into it because we got quite a few things to talk about.
Alright, let's go ahead and hop into it. I'm going to set the stage for what was going on. I'm going to start off in stage 3. We can go back and backtrack about some other stuff that happened in the race later on in the video. But the caution came out with just over 50 laps to go. Ross Chastain, he pitted and went a lap down at the time. Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin, they were leading at the time. But drivers like Chase Briscoe, Josh Berry, Ty Gibbs, Bubba Wallace, drivers who are right on that cut line, potentially needing to win to make it into the playoffs, they were all hovering in the top 10. Martin Truex Jr., he locked in on points. So the point situation was really between Ty Gibbs, Bubba Wallace, and Chris Buescher late in stage 3. Chris Buescher, on one of those restarts, he actually gets put in the wall by Todd Gilliland, and then he bounces off the wall and spins out the 38. And I'm surprised a lot more people aren't like fishy about this kind of, because like it is a right rear hook, but I guess all the data and stuff probably shows that Buescher just kind of bounced off the wall and was trying to recover the car and came out and ended up spinning Gilliland. But that ended up happening. Thought that brought out a caution. Chris Buescher, he said his car was fine and he was able to continue in the race. If he had any kind of significant damage, that would have definitely ended his day. But he was able to bounce back to an extent and still run pretty well. There was another caution for Carson Hocevar, and under this caution, Ross Chastain stays out. Chase Briscoe takes the lead on the restart after an incredible move on the backstretch and in turn 3. He got a massive run off of turn 2, takes Kyle Larson and Ty Gibbs 3 wide down the backstretch, clears both of them, goes into turn 3, and clears Ross Chastain as well. And Chase Briscoe retakes the lead with just a handful of laps remaining. And then there was another caution, and on that restart, there was a crash. Josh Berry got into Ty Gibbs, and Bubba Wallace was unfortunately involved in that wreck, pretty much ending his day. He was running pretty well all day long, hanging in the top 10 after starting on the pole, so it was a tough way to end the race for Bubba Wallace. Also involved Ty Gibbs, who was able to continue, and if he had an issue, that could have definitely impacted his playoff hopes as well. But he was able to keep going as well. And under that caution, 8 cars did not pit. Several others did, including Kyle Busch, Tyler Reddick, and Denny Hamlin, and several others. On that restart, Chase Briscoe beats Kyle Larson fair and square, takes the lead away from Kyle Larson, maintains the lead over Kyle Larson. Kyle Busch gets a fantastic restart. He goes from, it was either 7th or 9th on that restart, and he gets up to like 4th or 5th on the first lap, and then slowly starts making his way through the field. He had, I can't remember how many lap fresher tires, at least a handful. I don't think it was any more than
It was
2
three lap
digits.
fresher tires.
3 lap fresher tires. Thank you, Matthew. So he had 3 lap fresher tires. He was able to make quick use of them and get into the top 5, eventually get into second place. And with about 5, 6 laps to go, Kyle Busch starts reeling in Chase Briscoe. We're like, oh boy, this is going to get good. We got 2 drivers who are hungry for a win to punch their ticket to the playoffs. Not even to mention the winless streak that both of those drivers have. And Kyle Busch, once he got in that dirty air of Chase Briscoe, just could not make do. The tires probably evened out a little bit as well, just preventing Kyle Busch from getting a good enough run to capitalize on Chase Briscoe. But it was interesting. Those last few laps, Kyle Busch was there. If Briscoe made just the slightest mistake, Busch might have been able to slip by. But Chase Briscoe ends up winning the Southern 500, makes it into the playoffs. That knocks out Chris Buescher, who was ahead of Bubba Wallace in points at the time. We'll go over the playoff grid and all that stuff in a little bit. But quickly want to go over the results. So Chase Briscoe, Kyle Busch won 2. Kyle Larson 4th after dominating most of this race. Ross Chastain bounces back to 5th. Chris Buescher 6th after running in the top 10 all day. Corey LaJoie 9th. Apparently this is his first top 10 that isn't at a drafting track. So Corey LaJoie, top 10 finish at arguably the toughest race of the season. So congratulations to him for getting that done. And Tyler Reddick rounds out the top 10 after having just like the worst race of his career, like physically wise, just the amount of stuff that was going on with him. But quickly want to start off with Chase Briscoe, and a few people have mentioned this, but like this whole final 10-15 lap shootout between Kyle Busch was almost exactly how it was in the 2020 Xfinity race back when Chase Briscoe was driving the 98 car. He held off Kyle Busch late in that race to win. That was a very emotional win for Chase Briscoe. I believe at the time him and his wife were going through a loss of a child and all that kind of stuff. So that was a really cool win for him at that time. And then now for him to get a win in the 14 car in SHR's not final season, but basically the last season for 4 full-time cars. So for him to be able to get that win, the Southern 500, very happy for him. And he was up there pretty much all day long. Ran very well. He was second to Kyle Larson most of the second and third stage. Was able to pass Kyle Larson clean on a restart, hold him off, and hold Kyle Busch off. So Chase Briscoe had a really good car today. Very big showing for Ford and Stewart-Haas Racing for them to be able to get that win and get a car into the playoffs for them in that team. Also, Tyler Reddick, he wins the regular season championship by 1 point over Kyle Larson after, like I said, dealing with everything he went through with just feeling nauseous the entire race. Thankfully, he didn't do anything in the car. Apparently, those were all just kind of rumors that were floating around, but still can't imagine anything what Tyler Reddick was going through. Feeling nauseous pretty much the entire race. At one point, I think they tried to give him pills in the car, and he dropped them, so he wasn't able to take them the first time. But for him to be able to bounce back and just survive and get a top 10 out of it, wins the regular season by 1 point over Kyle Larson. And doesn't really matter what it is. This is a big moment for 23XI Racing. I was listening to the Teardown before this, and for them to basically build a team from the ground up in 4 or 5 years, 2021 was their first season, so their 4th season, they win the regular season championship. And while a lot of people downplay the regular season championship, this team it was the best team for 26 races, despite best team technically not, because Kyle Larson, the 5 car, beat them in the regular season standings. But anyways, doesn't matter anyway. Tyler Reddick, the 45 car, wins the regular season championship, at least on the driver's side. So very big momentum booster for that team to build it from the ground up. And I love to see this because you don't see new teams come into the sport and compete as well as 23XI has in the past few years. Like, they might not quite be a championship threat yet, but they're a race-winning threat almost every week. And a lot of new teams, you don't see that. So it's nice to see the money that Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan is putting in this team be of good use, and it's showing on the racetrack. and shows with this regular season championship. So congratulations to them, and good luck to them in the playoffs. And some other stuff that happened in this race, Martin Truex Jr., he had an issue early. He got loose under William Byron, overcorrected his car, came back up the track, collected Ryan Blaney, and did both of their days. Apparently Blaney, he hurt his hand a little bit. I'm not sure the full status of his injury or not. He said he was fine, so hopefully that is the case, and nothing like what happened to Kyle Busch at Indy a few weeks ago where he had to wear a brace on his hand for a few weeks. So hopefully Ryan Blaney and his hand, he's good, so he's able to go into the playoffs with nothing in his way. But very surprised by this. It was like lap 2 or lap 3, and Martin Truex Jr. just makes a mistake. Arguably one of the best drivers in the Cup Series, especially at Darlington where he's had success, just makes a mistake and spins out and takes himself out of the race, and it nearly cost him a chance at the playoffs, but he was able to clinch a spot after stage 2, but that was very close. He could have ended his championship hopes at Darlington after running like 2 or 3 laps, but he was able to clinch a spot in the playoffs. And last thing I want to quickly touch on is something I kind of touched on last week with Daytona, and I love how the NASCAR regular season has played out specifically this year, because I think we have that perfect balance of the win and you're in the playoffs to create that drama, to create that kind of Game 7 moment where a driver could win any race and punch their ticket to the playoffs, and at the same time we have that regular season points battle on the line. And yes, I know Kyle Larson didn't race the Coke 600, and he would have won the regular season if he did do it, but it doesn't matter. Like, he made the choice he did to run the Indy 500 and not the Coke 600, and this is what it came down to. It came to 1 point in the regular season championship, and it was nice to see a few drivers in it for like the last 5-6 races, and then it was really just down to Larson and Reddick in the final race. But yeah, I really like how the regular season went this year. A ton of different winners. I think there were 4, 5, maybe even 6 that were like below Bubba Wallace in points, which is insane. Like, we never would have seen that coming. We had Daniel Suarez, Harrison Burton, Austin Dillon, even though that didn't count, Chase Briscoe. I loved it. It was awesome. Cindric, yep, just like Matthew said. So, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm very excited to get these playoffs started. I'll go over kind of the playoff grid and everything in a minute, but definitely want to get Matthew's opinion on everything we saw from Darlington first. So, Matthew, what do you have to say about everything we saw from the Southern 500?
Well, the Southern 500 never disappoints. Of course, the first 2 stages were kind of boring just because Larson was pretty much whooping everybody's butt the first 2 stages. But then we get to stage 3, and that's when things get very interesting with the caution coming out. And we start seeing a variety of different tire strategies. Some guys are pitting like with only three laps on their old tires, and then again. So there was a lot of different tire strategies going on at stage 3. And of course, first and foremost, I want to congratulate Chase Briscoe, his 2nd career Cup win at the Southern 500, and a walkout win where he needed to win. And that 14 car was very impressive this weekend. I mean, qualified 3rd, stayed in the top 5 all night long, and was able to capitalize on one good restart where he made a 3-wide pass for the lead, and he made that car stick. So, and then of course he was able to hold off Kyle Busch at the end and with fresher tires, and it was just a very impressive run by Chase Briscoe. And also just a great way to send off what was an amazing run for Stewart-Haas Racing, which of course is shutting down the end of the season. This pretty much could be their final win in the organization's career, which I'm a little confused because with Haas Factory Team next year, does that technically mean they're still going to have like SHR stats or something? Or is this an entirely new team? I don't know. it's a little confusing to me. But in I guess the Stewart Haas Racing era, this could be the final win for them, and what a way to set it off, I guess, with the number 14 number. Of course, is iconic with that team with Tony Stewart over the years. And of course, with one of the biggest races of the season, the Southern 500. So, I mean, this was an amazing win for Chase Briscoe, and also just look, this is pretty much an amazing send off for Stewart Haas Racing. So, but a storybook ending. Um, of course, the regular season championship was also very, very close to this race, with Kyle Larson dominating the race with winning both stages, and Tyler Reddick pretty much battling with a virus, which was, you can pretty much call it the flu race, basically the flu race. Um, and credit to Reddick. I mean, he stuck it in there. I mean, he was able to just stay focused the entire time. I mean, I guess adrenaline is the key to block that. I mean, I can't imagine what he was feeling in that car, but I'm sure the adrenaline was helping that a little bit. But yeah, Reddick was able the last second there get a top 10 and clinch the regular season championship, which of course is a big deal. 15 plus playoff points. Now he's not the number one seed. Larson still is, but he's up there. He's still up there, top three. So that's still a big deal. And as we look into the playoffs, I think Tyler Reddick is definitely one of the guys to watch out for Phoenix, or who's going to get into Phoenix. I think Tyler Reddick is one of those guys right now, because that team's been on a roll this summer. So, of course, momentum can always swing a different way when we get towards the end of the season, but right now, his 45 team is looking good. So, congrats to him on the regular season championship. And it's amazing to see Michael Jordan there standing next to the regular season championship trophy, which I think that's the most recognition we're ever going to see a regular season championship get, because Michael Jordan's in there. It's cool to see him at the track as always. Let's see. Of course, the playoff battle going on with Bubba Wallace and Chris Buescher, that was pretty much going back and forth all night long, but unfortunately it didn't really matter because Chase Briscoe ended up winning and both of them are out now. So some pretty big names missing the playoffs this year. Bubba Wallace, Chris Buescher, Ross Chastain, Kyle Busch, of course. Those four guys in particular, they're missing the playoffs this year. It just comes down to, you gotta win. I mean, they didn't do their job. They're supposed to win. They're with cars that they're supposed to win, but they couldn't get the job done. So that's on them at the end of the day. So it's unfortunate, but try again next year. Let's see. Man, Truex was so close to screwing up his season with that lap. What was it? Lap 3, I think he wrecks. I mean, there's no excuse for it. I mean, that's on him there. I mean, it's lap 3, and he's making a move that wasn't going to work. So, I mean, he's so lucky he had enough points, because that would have been an embarrassing way to get knocked out of the playoffs by a not a smart decision on lap 3. So he got lucky on that one. It's good to see him still be in the playoffs in his final season, but man, that was a close one. So yeah, congrats to Chase Briscoe. What a amazing Southern 500, and yeah, the playoffs are starting. Let's get around to the final 10 races.
Yeah, very excited to get the playoffs started. And speaking of the playoffs, before I get to the playoff grid, I want to briefly talk about the few drivers, some notable drivers, I guess you could say, that did not make the playoffs this year. Matthew kind of mentioned it a little bit, but I want to go over a few of them and kind of explain where they could have maybe made chance to get into the playoffs. So, starting off with Kyle Busch, honestly, the past few weeks, the 8 car and the 8 team and RCR in general, they have brought speed to the racetrack, which is a good sign. They just did not have it the first probably half or 2/3 of the regular season, but the last few weeks they have brought that speed to the racetrack. I mean, if Austin Dillon's win was upheld at Richmond, we would have an RCR car in the playoffs, and that would shake up the grid even more. So they technically did get a win this season, just a little too late for that 8 car. I mean, he's a photo finish away from Atlanta to getting into the playoffs. The Daytona 500, he was up there. He finished second at Daytona last week, second at the Southern 500 this week. But Kyle Busch still has a chance to win this season and keep that streak alive. Chris Buescher is literally the closest finish in NASCAR history away from making it to the playoffs after losing by 1/1000th of a second to Kyle Larson at Kansas. Look at Darlington in the spring. He got roughed up by Tyler Reddick. He could have won that race. We look at Bubba Wallace. He's kind of in the same boat as Kyle Busch, the final probably third of the regular season. Him and that team, they brought a lot of speed. He looked really good at Michigan. Just got caught up involved in somebody else's mess there. Ross Chastain, he was leading at Nashville, late in the race there. And then a caution comes out, Denny Hamlin passes him, all that kind of stuff. That all happens there. And Michael McDowell, I mean, he was leading off of turn 4 at Talladega in the spring. And then he throws a bad block, gets wrecked. That ends his championship hopes, his playoff hopes. So a lot of these drivers, and just like Matthew said, for this playoff format, like, you have to win. Like, it's not guaranteed you're going to make it in on points. You could finish, like, this year we have 14 winners, I believe, so 2 spots on points, and you got to get it done. If you don't get that win early in the season, you're going to be stressed out for the entire summer stretch trying to get that win, trying to lock yourself in the playoffs, just because you can't count on points anymore. Like, you might be able to count your 1, 2, maybe 3 spots on points, but I mean, even like super speedways, we call those unpredictable. But look at it in the Southern 500, we had Chase Briscoe win, who I wouldn't really say is an upset because he was still pretty close in the, not like in points, but he was like 17th, 18th, 19th, something like that. He was right there. And then we look at Gateway. Austin Cindric wins at Gateway. Like, what? And so you can't even count on, like, just super speedways as having unpredictable quote unquote winners. You could have an unpredictable winner anywhere. I mean, Austin Dillon at Richmond. There you go. There's another one right there. So yeah, you can't even really count on that. So, like Matthew said, you have to win a race to get in these playoffs. You cannot focus on points. But talking about points, let's look at the playoff grid for the first time as we enter the 2024 NASCAR playoffs. We have Kyle Larson at the top with 40 playoff points, Christopher Bell second, Tyler Reddick third, William Byron fourth, Blaney fifth, Hamlin sixth, Elliott seventh, Keselowski eighth, Logano ninth, Cindric 10th, Suarez 11th, and Bowman 12th, who is also tied with Briscoe and Harrison Burton. And then at the bottom of the grid, we have Ty Gibbs and Martin Truex Jr. So there's a look at our playoff grid. I'll probably release my playoff grid later in the week. I haven't had enough time to kind of look at the whole playoff grid and kind of go through each race and round and figure out who I think is going to make it to the Final Four and the champion and all that kind of stuff. But just like quick basic prediction, it's going to be hard to beat Kyle Larson, I think. To this year just kind of seems like his year. I know he's thrown away a lot of races. He could easily have 5, 6, 7 wins this season. Christopher Bell, he's really good at Phoenix along with Ryan Blaney. If either of them get to Phoenix in the championship race, they could be tough to beat there. Tyler Reddick seems to be the hottest driver in the Cup Series right now. He's just won the regular season championship. They have run very well the past few weeks, but it could, anything can happen. We'll have to see. But those are a few of the drivers that you need to watch in the playoffs that if they make it to Phoenix, they're going to be pretty hard to beat. So that's it for the playoff standings. Now we can go into our segment of rating the race and our favorite paint scheme of the race. And for me, this is kind of tough because, kind of like Matthew said, the start of stage 1 was interesting, and then kind of the second half of stage 1 and then most of stage 2 and kind of the start of stage 3 were a little bit lackluster. Kyle Larson was just waxing the field, and then we get some cautions late in the race, kind of spices things up with the playoff drama and all that stuff. So it's hard to not take that into a factor of, the drama of the playoffs and all that kind of stuff. So I'll let it play a little bit into my rating of the race here. I'll give it a 8 out of 10 just because of all that drama that was created late in the race with the playoff standings. And was Buescher going to make it? Was Wallace going to make it? Was there going to be a new winner that didn't even matter between them in their points battle? So I'll give it an 8 out of 10. And then for my favorite paint scheme, I'm actually going to go a little bit of a different route here. I'm going to throw a loop in this. I don't think we've ever done this season. Maybe we have. But I'm going to go with an Xfinity scheme. And it's going to be Brennan Poole's number 44 Mac Doors System Chevrolet. It's not throwback weekend technically, but a few teams still like to do it. And oh my gosh, this car is so nice. Throwing it back to Bill Elliott's classic McDonald's car, the blue and the yellow. It's got the little moon on there too on the door. Absolutely love that car. Looks so good. And his throwback scheme in the spring was really good too with the Kyle Petty Hot Wheels car. So Brennan Poole and his number 44 team bringing the heat with that 44 car. That was a lot. Matthew, if you have anything to say about the playoffs, the playoff standings, go ahead and say that along with your rating of the race and favorite paint scheme.
In terms of this rating this race, I'll give it an 8 out of 10 as well. I thought the first two stages were kind of boring, but the time strategy was helping that a little bit because some people were on different strategies. But of course, third stage is when things got really interesting, and it did not disappoint. So I'm going to give this race an 8 out of 10. And as for my paint scheme in the race, I'm going to go with Ross Chastain's Busch Beer paint scheme they ran this weekend. I know this is kind of a throwback, so it's kind of cheating, but I mean, I can't help it. This paint scheme looks amazing. I think I like the one that he ran in May, the Busch throwback of that one, but this one still looks amazing. So that's my paint scheme.
I'm surprised you didn't go with Bubba Wallace's Air Force car. I thought you would have went with that one, but Ross Chastain's is still pretty good.
I already picked Bubba Wallace's scheme one of these races. I forgot which one. So, but I like the throwback one a little bit more.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. Well, I think that's pretty much gonna wrap it up for this video. Thank you guys for watching. If you made it to the end here, very excited for the playoffs. If you guys have any playoff predictions, drop them below in the comments. Maybe a driver you have winning the championship. Maybe you have kind of like a dark horse pick that might make it to the round of 8, maybe even the round of 4 in Phoenix. Let us know your thoughts down below. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up. Playoffs are started. Atlanta is the first race. Going to be absolutely wild, starting off with a drafting track as the first race. So yeah, we will catch you guys in the next video. Thank you guys for watching, and see you next time.